Myself, Rajshekhar Kota. So, I have a UGC NET certified assistant professor qualification in history, not in public administration, don't worry, okay. And I'm a postgraduate student in history from JNU, okay, JNU Delhi. And I have been to interview stages both in UPSC exam and also the state civil service exam, which we call Group 1 in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, okay. And with regard to public administration, I have a decade of acquaintance with the subject, okay, as a student. And as a faculty, I have 3 years of experience, and this is the 7th batch. Nammandi, no exaggeration, 7th batch, okay. I'm not saying I'm having a 10 years of experience. That's why I said a decade of acquaintance, okay. I'm very cautious using those words, okay. So, and out of many times I wrote public administration, my civil services, PubAd was my optional. I never changed my optional. Though I was good in history, but still I haven't changed my optional. And my highest score in public administration was 270. And I was again a victim of that period where UPSC massacred public administration options, 2012, 13, 14. So that was the period. And many times even I missed interviews just because of this optional too, okay. So, but now we are in a different trend altogether. For the last 4 years, from 2016 onwards, PubAd students are really doing good. And I have the statistics, I have the statistics. In 2017, the highest score was 334. 334 is not a cakewalk in UPSC, okay. And in the last 3-4 years, people are getting 310, 315, 320, not an issue. And 2019, the rank number 1 was also from PubAd, and the score was 293, I guess. So, and our own students got 250 plus 256, I think, okay. So, you can score good enough, okay. Now, let me ask a question. How many of you fixed with PubAd optional? Today is the first class. Okay, everyone fixed, okay. Let us introduce ourselves, then we'll go to it. And tomorrow I have to leave to Delhi. I'm sorry, I haven't planned it, but for getting some certificates and for exam, I have to leave. So, tomorrow I cannot take class. It will be like a 4-day tour. Again, our class will be on Thursday, okay. But you could have asked me why you started today itself. Because we promised that the class will be starting on 26th. Otherwise, I could have just stopped today's class itself, but we gave an assurance that we will be starting. And that is not a planned thing, it happened. So again, the class will be on the Thursday, okay, September 2nd, right? September 1st or September 2nd, Thursday, next Thursday. And since I'll be starting on September 2nd, I think, it will be for 4 months. And we'll have 6 days per week. I don't know about other things, and my optional will be 6 days per week. And I'll finish both paper 1 and paper 2 both. Maybe at this point of time, you may not really understand what is this completion of paper 1 and paper 2. Anyway, it's your responsibility, right, to finish it off. But generally, in public administration, paper 2 will not be finished. Actually, most of the people do not teach. Why? Again, you will know the reasons. But I'll finish each and every topic, okay. There will not be a single topic which I'll leave, okay. So it will take me a good amount of hours, at least 200 hours I'll take. Okay, 4 months, okay. Last batch to give, again, nowadays people need evidences, right? So last batch I started my first class on April 2nd, I think, okay. April 1st or 2nd I started. I ended my class on August 2nd, okay. Even in lockdown we took a class. I was delayed by 3 days. Again, because of rapid revision or some other programs used to be handled. So I used to give off on Saturdays for the initial 1 month. So 4 months, I'll finish it off, okay. Actually, I connected with your point because I said, I think I told to you or someone else I have said this, then if you're really good in writing answers for PubAd, you can nail every other subject because this is the toughest subject where you have, your writing skills are needed because as he said, more application oriented subject and you have to express your views in a very precise manner. So if you can really do it good in these subjects, for many other subjects you can handle it, except your international relations. International relations again need some other sort of vocabulary, but other things you can handle it. Now, most of you are from BTech also, BTech Mechanical Engineering, and remember your faculty is also BTech Mechanical, okay? So, understand, let me give some cautions before itself. For science background students, now she is a PubEd, there are some people from history and public administration, for them not an issue. For science background students, even for MBA not a big deal, BBA not a big deal. For science background students, particularly engineers, maybe on the face of it, the subject looks little bit technical, okay? But gradually, maybe within 2-3 weeks, you will try to assimilate everything that is being taught in the class. But for which you need that patience, okay? Right? Especially because of you are entering into a new, what you call new discipline, new vocabulary comes into picture. Because in science, or maybe in engineering, everything will be based on the formulas. If you know Rankine cycle, you will be the top mechanical engineering in your college, right? But here, it is not things will be in that formulas. It is your ability to express your views. Today, even before starting my class, many of you know that in India we have lots of corruption. If I ask you a question, why there is a corruption in our country? It's not you should be knowing the subject called public administration, but still you have some ideas in your mind. Yes or no? Why in India we have corruption? Because of high body mass index of politicians? No, right? Low pay grade. You personal greed. Remaining people? Greases, yeah, it acts as a lubricant, yes. Citizen itself encourages the corruption. What is Newton's third law? Why everyone answered the same for this and for corruption different answers? That is the difference between a social science and a what you call engineering sciences or other sciences. In social sciences, different views come into picture. It's not like there is a ready-made answer or a ready-made point. Your point is true. Your point is true. But how do you substantiate it? It all matters. But in engineering or other thing, there will be a rigid formula which everyone has to agree with it. Otherwise, you have to do an experimentation on your own, right? So this difference you people have to understand, and public administration is also part of that social sciences where you will have different views. Okay, this is the first thing you have to understand. And particularly, I'm little bit cautious about only the science students, because most of the times they get irritated in the initial days. But just hold on for 1-2 weeks, everything will be normal for you people. For other people, I don't think it will, because you will get into the groove very easily. Okay. And how many of you know? How many of you gone through the syllabus? Already, I think last workshop also gave you the sheets. So, how many of you gone through the syllabus? How many chapters are there in totality? 26. Okay, let me ask online people. Online people, please mute. Please unmute yourself and try to introduce Najima Begum. Yes. Chalo, fine. Paper 1 is called as Public Administration. Paper 2 is called as Indian Administration. Now just try to recollect what are the chapters which we have discussed or maybe mentioned. What is the first chapter? Introduction. It's an introduction chapter, right? What we will be discussing here, because I think most of you have attended workshops. So what we will be discussing as part of introduction? So basically, try to focus here, concentrate, and see this 2 to 4 is a devil's time. Okay, and most of us will get drowsiness. That's not a fun thing. It happens, boss. Okay, so for those people who have a habit of sleeping in this particular time period, have a small tea and come. That will solve your case. Okay, rather than coming and sleeping here, so better to have a chai and okay. So here, so focus here, concentrate here, okay, these are the things, because we'll be discussing question papers, there we have to map, okay. So in the introduction chapter, what we will be discussing is that, as this person rightly mentioned, we will be trying to understand what is the meaning of public administration. Now, why I have used this word called trying to understand? Because it's not a science subject where you will have one definition. There are many definitions to this public administration. And public administration as a subject is not a static subject. It is ever evolving. For example, IAS officer is also an administrator, right? What he does administration. Now, is the IAS officer of 1950s and the IAS officer of 2021, are they function in the same way? Surely not. Why? Why? Evolution happened. But why? Why that evolution happened? Because of the environment or because of the context. Environment here in the sense, the circumstances. Globalization is an example for it. Yes. Social factors changed. Political factors changed. Economic factors got changed. So obviously administration also have to change. In 1950, we don't have e-governance. Do we have Aarogya Setu app in 1960s or 1970s? Now we have Aarogya Setu app, we have COVID and everything, right? Right? So when the context got changed, public administration also as a discipline and also as a practice means maybe for example bureaucracy, the practitioners, right? They are the practitioners, right? Who will implement or who will do public administration. So as a discipline as well as practice also got changed. So in that context, we will try to understand the first subtopic called meaning of public administration and how it got evolved. Okay. Then we also try to distinguish between public administration and private administration. See, administration is administration everywhere. As that person rightly mentioned, administration is all about organizing and what you call cooperating and coordinating. Administration, even in law excellence, we have one or the other administration. And without administration, today we cannot have class. Every team, every department involved in some or the other aspect. Technical department, marketing department, management, and faculty department, and the maintenance department, they contributed something or the other to make sure that this class happens. So some administration happened. So administration is basically getting things done. But how do you do that? It varies from a private organization to a public organization. So let us understand the difference between the two. I think most of you here, maybe I think Najia, she was saying that she was working in a job, and so I think some of you here, particularly engineers, maybe you have left your what you call the job which you get after your graduation, right? And why do you leave that job? Most of the people get good package, 8 lakhs, 9 lakhs per annum, but still they leave that. Some people even get 15, 20 lakhs per annum, but they leave that jobs and they'll come to UPSC or this civils preparation. Why? Why? Most of the people say that, sir, we don't have satisfaction there. I don't know whether they'll have satisfaction here or not, but they'll say that we don't have satisfaction. Something difference is there that is making public services so attractive. That is why you people want to, even after finishing mechanical and electrical, you will surely get a great opportunities. If you try, you'll get great opportunities. But still you left that and you came here means something is there in these public services that attracts you. As Siddhant is saying, maybe power or maybe something, that satisfaction that you're serving to the public, something or the other, right? Or maybe things like, sir, my girlfriend ditched me, sir. I will show her what I am after cracking IAS. Something or the other will be motivating you, right? Leave about what motivates you, but still you came here. Because public administration in public organizations is different to that of private administration. In workshop, I am saying you an example. Can you expect that a private bus traveler will run a bus from between two villages? He will not do it. He will be running buses only between two cities where it is commercially viable. But government will do it, because for government, profit is not the prime motive. It is the service that is the motive. It is not the IAS officers are dumb. It's not your chief ministers are dumb. But still, why they give free services? Because for them, it's not money. It is the service which they are giving to the people. Okay. Now, loan waiving schemes. I think most of you know that. Every government, they'll give, after they come to power, they waive off the loans. Why they do it? They know that is an irrational thing. That is an illogical thing. Everyone knew that. But why they do it? Political gain, but something welfare is also there. Okay. They don't always check how much we get in return for a particular thing which we are providing as a service. IAS officer will never count on commercial lines. A businessman will count what we give and what we'll get in return. So that differences we'll try to understand. That is the first subtopic. Okay. Various administrative thinkers, their definitions also we'll try to discuss in this particular topic. Okay. Next, we'll move on to an important guy called Woodrow Wilson. He is the father of public administration. Okay. Tomorrow onwards, try to maintain that photo in your wallet. Okay. Keep a photo. Okay. He'll come to your rescue, because he only spoiled it. If that person was not there today, you'll not be reading public administration. One day he got frustration. Then immediately he thought, let me discover a new discipline called public administration. Later he became United States president also. So what made Woodrow Wilson to develop a discipline called public administration? Earlier, public administration was part of political science. Even now, there are many universities which don't offer a course in public administration. And Osmania University is the first university in India which offered a diploma course in public administration somewhere in 1930s or 1940s. It's a very young discipline. I think even I'm saying in workshops, JNU don't have public administration. Delhi University don't have public administration. Madras University is one university which is having public administration, and Osmania I think have public administration. Okay. IGNOU, National Open University, okay, fine. So even now, public administration is not being taught in the so-called popular universities. Okay. So why it is being taught as part of political science only? So, but why Woodrow Wilson wants to separate public administration from political science, and what is the context? Those are the things we will be discussing there, a very important theorem. Then the most important crux of the first chapter is evolution of the public administration, starting with Woodrow Wilson to the present governance era. Have you heard this word called governance? Okay, technicalities will go into the class. So now we are in this era called governance. So it started somewhere in 1887, public administration. Then it evolved because of the context, because of the environmental changes. Now we are in the era of governance. The 21st century in administration is characterized by governance. What are the meanings to all these words which are used? I'll tell you later. Okay. Then the most important thing is that there are three important conferences which were held in the evolution of public administration. That conferences, we call it as Minnowbrook conferences. It was a place in a university in United States of America. And every time this public administration scholars, they used to come there and have chai and biscuit. But while having a chai and biscuit, they have to discuss something, right? At least to digest that. So they had these three important conferences at different points of time. The first conference happened somewhere in 1967, and after 20 years again Minnowbrook conference 2 happened, and in 2008, somewhere 2007, again the third conference happened. After 20 years, again we'll have a third, maybe in 28 something, conferences. And these conferences plays a very, very important role in the evolution of public administration. Okay, we will be discussing those conferences. Okay, you will get frustration because all these three people fail to come to a solution how to improve public administration. Okay, we will be discussing that. Then what happened in 1970s, 1980s across the world was the thinkers or maybe the intellectuals at that point of time, they felt that public administration is inefficient. They lost the trust on government and government machinery. And they felt this government and government machinery is inefficient. And it cannot deliver the goods and services to the people. We cannot trust this instrument. Now it is better we trust business organizations or business management. That was an era, 1970s and 1980s. There are two people, I think some of you might know the names of these two people. One is Margaret Thatcher. Who is she? Prime Minister of Britain during 1970s, 1980s. And Ronald Reagan. Have you heard this guy? Who is the President of United States of America. So there was an ideology which these two people promoted. What is that ideology? We'll be discussing. And that ideology we call it as Thatcherism and Reaganism. Okay. What is this ideology is basically? State should not provide any goods and services because you are not able to do it. So provide to the private sector. Provide to the some civil society or some NGO. They will provide because you are not able to do it. And as an influence of that Reaganism and Thatcherism, there came one important concept which is there in your syllabus called New Public Management. I'll be more detailed, just I'm giving a brief view. New Public Management. New Public Management is simply an outcome of Reagan and Thatcher ideologies. Okay. What this NPM says is that we have to incorporate private principles in government functioning. What are those private principles? I'll give one example. Recently, all public sector undertakings are being privatized. Yes or no? Vizag steel plant was privatized and it was highly opposed, right? And many other PSU, ODF? Ordnance factory, you're saying. Yes. Now, most of the PSUs are being privatized, right? And also some of you, if your parents are government employees, maybe you might be knowing something called Voluntary Retirement Scheme, VRS. There is nothing voluntary in it, but they call it as Voluntary Retirement Scheme. Actually, these concepts originated from that ideology called NPM ideology. Now, if you are traveling in a train nowadays, mostly you find a private player who is providing you the food services there. Earlier, government used to provide food. Now, it's not the government, even private pantry, they are providing the food, right? Actually, those things, those developments, they are part of this NPM ideology. I'm just giving you an example. All these are examples of NPM which we are right now witnessing. I think some of you also have heard the concept of public-private partnership. Hyderabad Airport, Delhi Airport, all these are being constructed on this PPP mode, public-private partnership mode. What is this PPP mode means? So, in other words, both government and private sector involved in development or construction of a particular project. Okay. Now, even this is also an outcome of this broad ideology called NPM, New Public Management. All these are examples of NPM. Right now, we are in this era of NPM. Okay. Now, there is also one more important concept in that particular topic called governance. Governance and good governance. Chalo, okay, fine. Governance and good governance. Okay. I think it's a separate subject in your GS paper 2, but we will be handling here itself. Governance and good governance. This person once said in the orientation class, I asked him, what is governance? He said, functioning of the government. So I want to use the same definition at this point of time. It looks so simple. So it is basically, governance means how the government is functioning right now, the reality. Okay. So there are some principles which makes up this word called governance, and we will be defining it. And how many of you heard this term? When Prime Minister, for the first time when he came to power in 2014, he used a word called maximum governance and minimum government. He used this word, maximum governance and minimum government. Means what you can understand from that statement is government is different, governance is different. Okay. We will be discussing those differences as part of it. There is also one attached word to it called good governance. Suparipalana andi, good governance. When this Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister, when he won the election in 2019, the first question he was asked, what do you want to do to the state? He said, I want to give a really good governance to the people of this state. I don't know whether he is giving it or not. Yeah, please. I just normally said, okay, no ma Jaganan antavan padad na med, okay. So generally it's like, yeah, but he's one thing. Let me be true to you that he is very good. He's scoring 10 out of 10 in welfare related schemes. But what about the financial resources of your state? According to the BBC News, Andhra Pradesh have to borrow money to pay monthly salaries to the employees. And every month they have to borrow some 5,000 or some 6,000 crores to pay the monies to their employees, to pay the money. And the deficit, the revenue deficit of the state is in lakh crores. Almost, if I'm not wrong, it will be around 40% of our GSDP, gross state domestic product. Means out of 100 amount of money which you produce, 40 rupees you are borrowing it. Okay. And if you have such high borrowing limit, it will not be a viable state. Okay. And some people say, nah, what do you know? Ma Jaganan testad ekkadincho. He will be resolving everything. Okay, all these are political statements because administration happens within the political framework. For example, what are the goals of Andhra Pradesh administration today? Navaratnas. And who coined this term called Navaratnas? It is there in the YSR manifesto. Before they came to elections, they promised to the people that once we come to power, these Navaratnas will be implemented. Now, Andhra Pradesh administration goal was that. Even at the central level. In BJP manifesto, there are things like uniform civil code, bringing a bill against cow slaughter, scrapping of Article 370. All these were there in the BJP manifesto, and once they came to power, that became the guidelines for the entire administration. Yes or no? So in that sense, public administration functions within the political framework. An IAS officer is, yes, he's a very intelligent guy, knowledgeable person and highly efficient person, but he cannot take the decisions whatever he can do it. He has to obey to the political command. Those things we'll be discussing. So this is what the first chapter is all about. Introduction chapter is about this. Okay. Now, I can discuss each and every topic. Please introduce yourself, ma. What's your name? This is a public administration class. Please don't stand up, okay? Please. Chalo. So, for those people who are not really aware of the syllabus, because mugging of the syllabus is very much important. Yesterday, this person came. He asked me how to read current affairs. Only one question he asked by mistake. And I gave almost 1 hour answer for it, okay? So, the thing is that one solution which I gave is that you're reading current affairs to crack this exam, right? That's all. It's not to accumulate knowledge or to show, or you will not go for this NTR, junior NTR show, Kaun Banega, something is starting, right? What is that show? Karorpati show? Evaru meelo Koteswarudu. You are not preparing for those shows, right? You are preparing for your civil services examination. So when you are opening your Hindu newspaper, first of all, when you are just looking into it, when you are reading a headline, the first thing which should come to your mind is that, why am I reading this article? Why am I reading? If you don't have an answer for it, then it is useless. Why are you reading that particular article? What is the answer for this means? Okay, this can, the answer will be like, I can use this particular article in maybe in GS paper 1 or GS paper 2 or maybe in my public administration. But how do you know that I'll be using in GS paper 1 or maybe in optional? Syllabus mapping should be there in your mind. And that will reduce a lot of your stress while reading current affairs. So first by heart it. So that's what one thing. So you should have clearly everything in your mind, syllabus particularly, okay? Now that is the first chapter. Second chapter is what? Second chapter is administrative thought. What is this name meaning? What is this term meaning, administrative thought? What we think about administration? What the thinkers thought of administration, okay? What is administration according to the thinkers, right? Here we will be discussing the technicalities. Again, I'll start in the next class. There are three broad themes of thinkers, or I can say three broad strands, okay? The first strand is classical thinkers. The first strand is classical thinkers. What is classical? Something old, right? So there are group of thinkers who laid the foundation for public administration. And in this classical thinkers, we will be discussing there. You can look into the names. We will be discussing F.W. Taylor, Max Weber. Max Weber is most important guy. Why he is important? Because he is part of the syllabus. Why he is important? Because he is the person who is responsible for this bureaucracy which you people are aspiring to go into it. How a bureaucrat should be and what is this bureaucracy. These things was given by this Max Weber. He is a German sociologist. Okay, I don't know, German created a lot of intellectuals. Okay, Karl Marx, Max Weber, your Montesquieu, and your science who is Einstein. All these people are from that particular region. Why? That is not part of PubMed. Okay, classical. Okay, classical tradition. You will be discussing F.W. Taylor and Max Weber, and there are three important people called Henry Fayol, Lothar Gulick, Lyndall Urwick, and Mooney and Rayleigh. These are the thinkers' names. Valki naaku ఏ సంబంధం లేదంటే, just thinkers' names. Okay, all these people we have to read. Okay, and when I club all these people in a broad name called classical, means they have some similarities. Okay, what is this classical approach? We will be starting. Maybe our first class will be on this, defining what is classical. Next important strand is neoclassicalism. Neoclassicalism. Sometimes my handwriting looks like a Dravidian script, okay? But don't get hurted, okay? Try to decipher it, okay? Neoclassicalism. The other name for it is, any guess? Okay, you are trying to define it. Neo means what? Post or new. So there are some commonalities between classicalism and neoclassicalism, but there are also some additions to it. The other name for it is human relations school. Human relations school or human relations management. I am just discussing the broad strands, okay? The second chapter have lot many thinkers. So I am trying to club these thinkers in this broad strands, okay? There are two important thinkers who comes under this neoclassicalism. One is M.P. Follett or M.P. Follett, people will say. Yathik untadu kada. So T silent, that word silent, this word silent anadi untadu. But the name is M.P. Follett, okay? She is the first female administrative thinker in public administration. we have very less female administrative thinkers. Why? Huh? I don't know, Baba. Why they're, because they know more than us, but they're least interested to share their ideas, I think. Yes? That is not the answer, but okay. That is a patriarchal, the administration is a patriarchal thing, so we have less number of female thinkers, but one thinker is MP Follett. Okay. Second one is Elton Mayo. Elton Mayo. I think you have mentioned this person name before also. Elton Mayo. So we have two thinkers in neoclassical tradition. Maybe see at this point of time, you may not able to really grasp what these terms are, but that is what initially takes time to get assimilated with these ideas. Okay. Neoclassicalism. This is one tradition and two names are there. Okay. The third one is behavioralism. 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 And in this group, we have lot many thinkers, and the most important thinkers are two people. One is Chester Bernard. I think it is there. Chester Bernard. And the other thinker is, we have mentioned in the workshop this thinker. On that day, the class was started with this thinker. Who was that? I said he got Nobel Prize also. Huh? Good. Herbert Simon. He got Nobel Prize for his theory. But he got Nobel Prize in economics, not in PubMed. Okay? Because PubMed don't have a Nobel Prize. Okay? At least you people try. These three are the important broad strands, and all the thinkers whom we will be discussing comes under these three groups. And there is also other school which we generally call it as part of behavioralism, and that school is participative school. It is there, right? And who are the three thinkers there? Douglas McGregor, okay, Chris Argyris and Rensis Likert. These are the thinkers' names. Okay. For us, more than the thinker, the essence is important. Okay. Now, what they will say is that, understand. Please concentrate here. First of all, how an organization should be. That is what the fundamental question. And how you can improve efficiency of an organization. Okay. If an organization is inefficient, will it exist? No. Now we used to have a brand company called Nokia. How many of you have Nokia phones? But once upon a time it was only Nokia, N95. Now it is a mask name. That time it was a phone name. N95, most popular brand at that point of time. Nokia series was most popular. 200675, that was the period. Okay. And Rahman background, I think. Something is there, I don't know, but it was highly popular. But why it was now ceased to exist as an organization? It failed to cope up with the technology. Now who took away that technological advancement? They failed to update themselves, first of all, and they also failed to outbeat the competitors, outpace the competitors. And who is number one right now in phones? Apple. Samsung is okay, it's like a mass phone, but Apple. Why Apple is always in number one position? It is because of the, its ability to cope up with the technological changes. And every phone, it comes with some new features. Okay. Why people use Apple? To show off. There are some people, they don't know how to use Apple phone. Basically, why do we use Apple is that because it have a highly encrypted technology. Highly secured thing, you will have a lot of privacy thing. But people today will buy only just for to show off, and they will not get any call. But to show off like this, okay, it is demonstrating effect. Apple is just to show a demonstrating thing, but it's a highly secured phone, highly encrypted. Okay, you know what is encryption, right? Right? Example. Recently, it is there in news. WhatsApp privacy policies and everything. So generally WhatsApp and Telegram, they have this encryption. Nowadays, if you have a video call in Telegram, there will be some emojis shown on your Telegram. Now you have to ask the other person whether the same emojis are shown to him or not. If both are matching, means your call is highly secured. Otherwise, something is happening there. Okay? Ammaya. Okay? Chalo. So, okay, fine. Now, they gave lot of structural principles on which an organization should be based upon. What are those structural principles? I'll tell you. But they fail to acknowledge that organizations will have human beings. They never considered those people into consideration. Classical scholars, F.W. Taylor, Max Weber, everyone. Neoclassical people, for the first time, they acknowledged that human beings also have emotions. They also have some psychological factors you have to take into consideration, right? For example, okay, take myself. Now I came from R&D, from main office I came here. If something issue is there, obviously that will have an impact on my mood here or not. Because we are human beings, though we sometimes behave like we are not human beings, but we are human beings, right? So, my psychological and my social factors also needs to be taken into consideration to analyze me. And that concept was given by these neoclassical scholars because they understood organization will have human beings, right? Sometimes if you have issue with your girlfriends, if you come to class, right? So, they understood that logic that human beings are emotional creatures and those factors needs to be taken into consideration, okay? Behavioral scholars are also of that kind, but they were full-blown behavioralists, means they tried to understand how humans behave in an organization, right? When you are in an organization, you behave differently, but you have some behavioral things in you. You have to understand those behavioral things, okay? We'll be discussing lot many technical details, but the second chapter covers of this broad strands, okay? Behavioralism, classicalism and neoclassicalism. What is the third chapter? Administrative behavior. It is again something, an extension of this administration behavior. This is the third chapter. A very good chapter. Generally here what we will learn is that how decisions are being taken in an organization. I'll tell you. Yesterday, I kept a proposal to my management. What is that proposal? Is that, sir, I am engaged in other works in main office and why can't you provide me the top classroom, the main office classroom? That is a proposal I kept to the management, that because I have to do other activities, so it takes time for me to come here, and why can't you, give me a class there? Now, organization have taken a decision. What is that decision is? Public administration should be given to Domalgoda, sociology should be given to the other room, anthropology should be given to the main building. That is what the decision they have taken. On what grounds they have taken that decision? Now, I asked a particular decision based on my personal factors. Now, what decision they have taken is something different. But what are the factors they have taken into consideration? One is student strength, particularly online strength. Online strength is the main criteria, okay? And the other thing is tradition. Tradition means, last time also we gave anthropology here, right? Why suddenly, why you want to disturb it? Chalo, let us follow right now the same thing. Let us maintain that status quo. But here we will understand how organizations generally take decisions. Now government came with farm bills. Good, very good, right? They came with farm bills. What made government to come with farm bills? That is also an important decision, right? Again, government just withheld those bills. And what made government to take that particular decision? Every time in organization, people will take some or the other decision. How do you take a decision? Now you took an important decision in your life. What is that? Coming to UPSC Civil Service Examination. Is it an important decision or not? It's a deadly decision, boss. If you're not doing any, if something goes wrong in this, your entire youth will be lost. There is no doubt in it. If something really goes wrong in this particular, in the civil services journey, your entire young age will be lost. Your 20s will be completely wiped out. Because this is an addiction, boss. Once you enter into it, you cannot go out of it. Because that addiction will be there, which will try to make you be here forever. And one single attempt takes you 2 years of your time. If something goes wrong even at interview stage, it will take other 2 years. So within 3 attempts, your 5 years of your beautiful age will be gone. And you will miss your engineering subjects and everything. Everything will be forgot. We will forget everything, what you have read in your graduation and everything. What we will have at the end of the day means nothing. Nothing. Really nothing. People will say that maybe your parents might think that, no, they'll ask you, "Arey, please apply for some other job. You can easily get through it." They think that studying for civils means you can clear every job. If you're studying for civils means you can only clear civils. If not, assistant commandant exam. UPSC conducts CAPF exam. Every one of you, please write that exam. Assistant commandant means is almost equivalent to deputy superintendent of police. Even for women, it is there. You can clear that exam without any special preparation. Other than that, for every other exam, you have to study. But what your parents think is that, "Arey, you're preparing for civils means you can clear every exam means, village secretary kuda raadu." Okay, right? And sometimes this pressure will be there. They'll call you on phone. See, our neighbor relatives, his son got some village secretary, it seems. What about you? "Arey, I'm preparing for central secretariat. You're asking me for a village secretary." But for them, it is only just a government job. Okay, all these pressures will be there, right? So, but of course, you have taken a very important decision. Your decision is based on what? What are the factors that you have taken into consideration while taking this decision? Emotions, interest, next what? Analysis. Means some facts and some values. These two words, it's not I coined, it's Herbert Simon who coined. Every decision will be based on facts or values. If your decision is based on facts, means you will be taking a rational decision. If your decision is based on emotions, it will be irrational decision. That's why our elderly people says that when you're in anger, don't take a decision. Or when you're in a happy mood, never take a decision. Because when your emotions are extreme, never take a decision because they will not be a logical decisions. Never give promises when you're happy. And never take a decision when you're in anger. This is what our culture says to us. And Herbert Simon for the first time really documented everything, for which he got a Nobel Prize. Okay. So in administrative behavior, such type of things we will try to understand how decisions will be taken in an organization. And there is other important, very beautiful theory which you people have to really know, and even Modi Saab right now is recently said that an administrator should be a leader. He was saying these words, an administrator should be a leader. We have a set of theories which says about leadership theories. Right? Leader plays a very important role in an organization, right? In Telugu, there is a popular state saying, okay, I think most of you might be knowing that, how a leader should be. How a leader should be means, a leader should be always 4 feet ahead to the group. A leader should be always 4 feet ahead to the group so that he can listen whatever the group is speaking. Whether they want to move or whether they want to take rest or whether they want to go for a tea or whether they want to have a lunch, he will be always in touch with the group. Right? But he will be not part of the group because he is 4 feet ahead. Right? And he will guide the group. Arey, please be careful, there is something, some pit is coming and some animal is there. Please be, he always gives a direction to the leader. So that is what generally in Telugu culture, leader is being defined. A person who always directs the group. Now in organization, there are also some important people who have that leadership role. An IAS officer is a leader actually. He should play a leadership role actually. And how? How he does that? What are the things he has to take into consideration? And there is one theory which says that a leader is a person who can understand the situation. A leader is a person who can understand that situation completely. And even MP Follett, I mentioned here one lady, right? She also says that. She says that an IAS officer, he went to a forest. Okay, he don't know much about the forest. Though he is an IAS officer, high authority he have, but he don't know much about the forest. But there is small kid there, maybe 10 years, 11 years kid. He knew the entire forest because he's staying there for the last 10 years or 11 years. Now he is directing to the IAS officer, please follow me, I'll show you the path. Now you should not show your ego. Hey, IAS officer here means you will just go somewhere else. So you have to follow. But what is happening there? That child knows what the situation is exactly. Now he will be the leader at that particular point of time, not the IAS officer. IAS officer might have the position, but at that point of time, he don't have the understanding of the situation. So obviously he has to be led by the child there or the kid there. Okay, such type of theories we will be trying to discuss as part of this administrative behavior. Because see boss, your role is tomorrow you have to be bureaucrat. Suppose if you're an IAS officer, or maybe let me take IPS officer, there will be almost some thousands of force subordinate to you. Thousands of people subordinate to you, right? If you are SP, DSPs are subordinate to you, circle inspectors, sub-inspectors, constable, head constable, all these people are part of that particular district law and order administration. Now, how do you guide them? How do you coordinate them? Do you think coordination is so easy thing? No. Coordination is the most toughest thing which I felt, because of my experience in this organization, I felt the most toughest thing is coordination. Because you have to coordinate not individuals but people. People means their minds. You have to coordinate their minds. It's not so easy. ప్రతి ఒక్కడికి ఒక డిఫరెంట్ ఆలోచన ఉంటుంది. And it's not so easy you can coordinate the people, but now you have to coordinate the entire system. Entire system. How do you motivate them? How do you motivate? And that is also important thing here. Motivational theories are there. How do you motivate? There are a lot many theories. In there is a question here in a paper. They asked about motivational theories. Direct question. What is motivation? I think, as per my knowledge is concerned here, civil services examination is the only examination in this entire country which needs day-to-day motivation. Which needs day-to-day motivation. And one reality is you will not have 24/7 someone to motivate you. You have to motivate yourself. You have to come out of your lowness and you have to energize yourself and you have to prepare. And it's not engineering preparation where, before the exam you'll do it and you will get your first rank or second rank. It is day-to-day batting. Every day, at least you have to read. I'm not saying the number of hours which you have to read, but at least every day you have to do a good number of works reading. Daily basis for 360 days. If something goes wrong, for 2 years or 3 years you have to do it. So for that needs high amounts of motivation. But what is that motivates you? Many, many factors. Some people just, they want to dream that, yes, I need IAS. Maybe for some people, maybe IPS, I want that dress on my body. So I have to prepare. Maybe for some people, maybe I gave promise to my parents. At any cost, I have to clear. Some or the other thing drives you and you will be motivating yourself on day-to-day basis, right? And in organization also, how do you motivate people? How do you motivate people? If you don't motivate people, they'll not do the work the way you expect, right? So you should know the tricks how to motivate the people. And if you ask me, the entire public administration is all about knowing the intricacies of motivating people. It doesn't mean you will be a spiritual guru here, but at least you know how you have to motivate the people. And Chester Barnard, he wrote a book called Functions of the Executive. That is one of the popular book of 20th century. And why that book is popular? Because he gave a theory how to motivate individuals. The most read theory, how to motivate an individual. Because it's not so easy to motivate an individual, boss. Okay. So all these theories will be part of this administrative behavior. Now what is the fourth chapter? Organizations. I have mentioned it before. Again, I will be mentioning because I want to indoctrinate this terminology, these chapters into your mind. That is what my intention of repeating the syllabus in detail, okay? So that you will get a clarity what you are reading and where are you exactly at that point of time, like in a status, okay? See, in this organizational theory, we'll try to understand various forms of organization. Organizations, it's not every organization will have the same structural form. We have a company, we have a department, we have a ministry, we have a board, we have a commission, right? We have a bureau. All these names I think most of you heard, right? But why these many names? Why they can't give a single name for all organizations? Telika? Because this name which I am referring right now will determine the nature and function of that particular organization. I can say Central Bureau of Investigation, but I cannot say Central Board of Investigation because there is a meaning behind that. Okay? Simply what I want to say, Central Bureau of, when I say this word called bureau, it means that that organization is headed by a single person. Right? I can say Union Public Service Commission, not Union Public Service Bureau, or maybe not Union Public Service Board. Why? Because when there is a commission, it means there are multi-membered, it's a multi-membered body. So, they have some structural differences and also they have some functional differences. So, these forms are very much important. Why we have to know? Because today administration is happening only because of these organizations. We have lot many commissions, we have departments, we have ministries. I think I used to ask this question. Recently there was a ministry which was created. Ministry of Cooperatives. Why they haven't created a department? Why only ministry? At least there is some logic behind it, right? And to create these things, different legal frameworks also needs to be followed. Now we have what you called companies and corporations also. And there is an intention behind creation of a company or a corporation or a department. Okay? I used to give this example, even in workshop I gave. Last year I think, after Jagan Mohan Reddy came to power, he made APSRTC as a department. He gave departmental status to Andhra Pradesh State Road Transport Corporation. Earlier it was a corporation, it was given a departmental status. Why? What is the difference? Now employees were so happy after this status was given. But what is the difference between a department and a corporation and a company? Structural differences, legal differences, as you mentioned, functional differences, everything will be discussed as part of this particular topic. In addition to that, we have also many other organizational forms. One organizational form, as you have mentioned, public-private partnership. It is also an organizational form which combines the strengths of public as well as private. That organizational form also we will try to understand. And we will link this topic to your paper 2. There we have a topic called public sector undertakings. Public sector undertakings. There is a topic in your paper 2. There we will be discussing Miniratna, Maharatnas, Navaratnas. Navaratnas means not these Navaratnas of Jagan Mohan Reddy, but there is a tag given to a particular undertaking based on their performance. And actually this concept of rating an organization based on their performance is again a legacy of your NPM. I use this word, right? NPM. What is that? New Public Management. When it entered into picture? Why? What is that? Someone introduced it. Who is that? Huh? So, you have to recollect, you have to make your mind work. Okay? Reaganism and Thatcherism introduced some ideologies, and because of those ideologies, public administration responded to those ideologies, and the response is NPM, New Public Management. And one of the principle of NPM is that you rate an organization based on the performance. And the example for it is Maharatnas, Navaratnas, Mini Ratnas. Okay, these are the tags given by the government. Okay, I'll be discussing all those things, and also we will be discussing here part of it, privatization of PSUs. There is one more similar term, an attached term called disinvestment. Have you heard this term? How many of you read today's? How many of you are reading current affairs daily? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What about others? మనకు తెలియదా సార్ ఇదంతా current affairs? Daily reading of current affairs is very much important. Please, it's not a funny thing I'm saying. You will realize it. You will realize it. If you don't read today's current affairs, trust me, you cannot read tomorrow's current affairs and along with today's current affairs. ఈరోజు తినకపోతే రేపు ఈరోజు రేపు తినేస్తామా? అది మనిషి ఇంకేమని అంటారు. ఓకే, సో డైలీ కరెంట్ అఫైర్స్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు ఫినిష్ ఆన్ రెగ్యులర్ బేసిస్ అండ్ దాట్ గివ్స్ యూ రెగ్యులారిటీ బాస్. ప్లీజ్, I think now most of you are having smartphones. If you spend 50% of the time which you spent in WhatsApp, Telegram and what you call Instagram, I think you can finish your newspapers. Not all, but some people. Even they are very much serious to comment on the status. You came here and you have lots of work, boss, here. You will not have a time, but still you will comment on the status. Feeling sad. Allavaro talaka maasanalu pedtaru. Feeling sad and depressed. Now you will ask, what happened? Enduku neeku? Okay. So try to be regular in newspaper, please. Take it seriously. If your newspaper reading is regular, GS paper 2, GS paper 3, some topics in ethics, your public administration, lot of topics, everything will be addressed from your newspaper reading. So please be careful. Please be regular. Okay. Now, what is the fifth topic? Fadafat. Accountability and control. Now, anyone can guess why we have to discuss accountability and control as part of public administration? Accountability and control. Why we have to discuss? Yes. Now, see, IAS officers, or I can say the bureaucracy, they have lot of power and authority. Lots of power and authority. An SP, without giving you the arrest warrant, he can take away person. Means that much of power and authority is having. But when you have that much of power and authority without responsibility, it might lead to disaster. And we all knew it, custodial deaths. So when you have this much of power and authority, how you make the bureaucracy responsible or answerable? Accountability means answerability. Now we have institutional mechanisms to make these people, the bureaucracy, answerable. Right to Information Act is there, right? Media plays also a very important role in in making the government answerable. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. Alala cheyitలేదు. That is the secondary thing. Okay. Now, don't take it to your heart. Okay. Don't take it to your heart. Anyone after watching, there are two important newspapers and channels in Andhra and Telangana, boss. Anyone can critically look into the government of Andhra Pradesh performance after reading Sakshi. Civils kanta kastam adi. Your CSET is more easy than trying to critically understand your Sakshi. And there is one more beautiful newspaper on the other side, Andhra Jyoti. And addam kaadu. I don't know what to say about this person. In the next 10 days, Jagan Mohan Reddy will go to jail. Nuvva cheppindi. And every day he'll repeat an article of this kind. Every day. Every day he'll comes and says, okay, CBI filed charge sheet. He will be going to the jail. What is that you want to say to the public? So that much of biased media is there, boss. Really, media is, I don't know how you people will handle after you enter into the system, because media freedom is a measurement of democracy. You cannot do anything to media because if you do anything, if you curtail the freedom of media, it is just a dent on the democracy, right? But still you cannot use that as an excuse to do whatever you want, okay? And recently I think Andhra Pradesh government have imposed a Sedition Act on 2 news channels 2 months or 1.5 months back. Even I think 1.5 months or 2 months back. And in the last few years, Sedition Act was used very frequently. Desadroha Chattam andi, Sedition Act. It's there in the news and maybe people can ask. Okay, I think some of you might be knowing what is this Sedition Act. You cannot say anything against the state which undermines the stability of the state or the security of the state. If you do that, you will be penalized under the Sedition Act. Okay, and for the first time it was imposed on whom? Not now, long, British period, on Mahatma Gandhi is intelligent. He know how to escape from the, no, he's a clever person with regard to the strategy, no doubt in it. Bal Gangadhar Tilak, sedition was imposed on him, okay. So, a colonial act still the government is using. Now tell me, if you criticize the government, do you think the Indian state will collapse? Do you think Indian state is such a weak state? Arey Baba, your Indian democracy withstood even emergency, even huge communal rights, insurgency, Naxal movements and separatist movements. Still your democracy was there. India is a democratic country. You are not this bacha Afghanistan. You are India. But why you are so insecure? If someone really criticizes you, you want to enforce sedition. But in the last 10 years, the usage of sedition increased enormously. And recently there was one Dalit, he was died in the hospital. Stands for me, right? How can you do these things, sedition? Why are so sensitive? If someone says things to you, why are you taking so sensitive? I don't know what is happening. In public administration, I take a stand, left stand, okay? I'll have this left inclination, but you be a little bit cautious, okay? You don't write in your answers that I want to change this government. No, okay, okay? Just you be neutral, but I think I can take that lenience. I think you are matured enough to understand the biasness of the faculty, okay? I don't want to put on a mask that I am a neutral person here. I am not neutral and I will not be, okay? And why? Because recently UPSC conducted an exam, 1 month back, assistant commandant exam they have conducted, CAPF. They asked 3 questions. Now you use your intelligence and you tell me. The first question was oxygen crisis in Delhi. First question was oxygen crisis in Delhi. Write a report on oxygen crisis in Delhi. CAPF, UPSC conducted the exam. Second question, post-poll violence in West Bengal. Second question, post-poll violence in West Bengal. 2 questions. Third question, farmers' protests are politically motivated. 3 questions. చెప్పండి దేంతో వీళ్ళని కొట్టాలి మీరే చెప్పండి. Do you expect or do you think that there is a crisis only in Delhi? Oxygen crisis is there only in Delhi? Because you have a different government there, you want to blame that particular government. Now understand how many people who are preparing for UPSC will know what is happening in Delhi. There will be people from Tamil Nadu who will be writing the exam, from Andhra Pradesh who will be writing the exam, and from Odisha people will be writing the exam. Now how can you expect a person from these many states to know something what is happening in Delhi? You could have asked oxygen crisis in the country. What made you not to ask? Post-poll violence in Bengal. But these are politically motivated. Post-poll violence in Bengal happened under the Trinamool Congress after they came to power. Now you want to, because see, political motivated questions you cannot quantify or you cannot prove with evidence. But with gut feeling you can say these are little bit of biased. That to UPSC asked this question. If some other bacha, some other organizations, if they could have asked, okay, chalo. If APPSC asked, mere alaga waste, okay. Even if you ask these questions, you know, these people take 5 years once to conduct an exam, And recently, no, I'm not making fun. Recently, what the APPSC chairperson has said is that, why I'm saying all these things is, these are the reality which are happening, and you have to understand what are the issues institutions facing. Recently, 2 days back, APPSC chairperson, he said that High Court of Andhra Pradesh asked, you have conducted a stupid exam, lot of technicality issues are there, why it happened? What this person said is that, anyone, any guess? What this person said is that, Arey Baba, they have conducted the exam without my permission. I was not even called to the meetings. The secretary, APPSC secretary, he took the decision and I was not there. Kani, because of your irresponsibility, students got lost, right? Now, because of your ego clashes, because of your internal failures, this is the answer APPSC chairperson gave to the High Court. That I was not called for the meetings. I don't know exactly what happened. They bypassed me. Understand this. When institution fails, the effect will not be for the institution, but for the society. And I think already I told this example with regard to All India Council for Technical Education, AICTE. AICTE. What this body does? Framing guidelines and giving some approval for engineering education in our country. Because this institution failed, many of the engineers' lives also got lost. Because you gave approval to those colleges which do not have adequate infrastructure, which do not have the qualified faculty, but you gave approval. And I never understood this logic, how engineering colleges are mostly held by politicians. Balkant interest chadupaina. Why you gave approvals? And because of that, today in Andhra and Telangana, we have hundreds of engineering colleges, maybe 700 or 800. So there is a huge Malla Reddy. Okay. Online class heltundi, okay. Fans untaru, okay. So, but okay, no, not an issue. Okay. At least when we cannot say whatever we want to say, why the democracy? We say great about Indian democracy, largest democracy in the world. Enduku ivi build up? So at least we should be confident and we should be feel free to say whatever we want to say. Fine. Now, because of that, the supply of engineers got increased tremendously without any demand. Okay. Now, sometimes I used to ask engineers that, have you heard this word called on-campus placement? Enti? Edo cheptunna entadi? On-campus placement. Entadi? Entadi nenu ikkada cheppedi? On-campus placement, some company should come to you and they have to recruit. Means most of the engineering colleges, they never heard this word called on-campus placement. Okay. So that is what. Now you understood how sensibly you have to deal with the institutions which you are handling. All institutions you people will be handling. There is no doubt in it. You in the sense IAS officers and of course civil servants. But if an institution makes a mistake, the impact will be cascading. Okay. So be sensitive. And these theories will help us to understand, okay, how we have to be responsible when you're part of an organization. Okay. Now, the 6th chapter is, what is that? Administrative law. See, basically, administration is a complex activity, boss. Okay. IAS officers, you'll have lot of pull and pressures, lot of pressures you'll have. And to take a decision, it's not so easy always. Because in a democracy, decision making is not so easy. You have to convince everyone. Now, what the day before yesterday in newspapers, let us go for caste census. You can go for caste census, but if something goes wrong, India will be further divided for the next century. Right? The last census happened in 1931. Now, even Hindu wrote one beautiful word. See, caste census have lot of advantages, but if you do it with partisan political interest, it will be like a disaster for the next century. Already caste is creating lot of issues. Now, if you do it with different intentions, it will take India backward for the next 100 years. Okay. So, when administration is involved in such type of activities, some privileges needs to be given to them. Okay. Some extra preferences should be given to them. What is that? We'll be discussing as part of it. And what is the difference between this administrative law and something called as rule of law? Rule of law means చట్టానికి ఎవరు చుట్టాలు కదా. Okay, so but these are the things which we read only in the books. I'm saying honestly, on the face of it, on the initial day itself, I am giving my opinions about things. Today rule of law is working only for those people who have money, who have muscle power and who have political clout. మిగతా వాళ్ళందరికీ just it is different. Example ఇవ్వాలి కదా, I have to substantiate, right? In our country, there is an issue called under trial prisoners. Under trial prisoners means they haven't proved guilty, but still staying in the jails. Nandi movie, how many of you watched? Telugu movie. That is based on that story plot. Under trial prisoners. In our country, there are almost 60% of the prisoners who are staying in our prisons are under trials. And in this under trial prisoners, 2/3 or majority of the people are from SC, ST, OBC, minorities. Can we say that, sir, these people will do a lot of criminal activities, that's why they were in the jail? Can we say that? But what is the reason then? Poor investigation, but these people don't have the resources to get access to the judiciary and get a bail or something sort of that. Many people are poor, almost all. They don't have any sort of clout, money clout or political clout, so still they are in the prisons. And the most funniest thing is that, suppose they have done one crime. The punishment is, for example, 2 years. If the punishment is proven guilty, if the crime is proven, the punishment which they get is 2 years. But they're staying in the jails for 4 years. What is this logic? Two-thirds of the prisoners of this kind. Then where is the rule of law? Tell me. Where is the rule of law? National Legal Services Authority, NLC. Sir, we have National Human Rights Commission. We have everyone here sitting in the class knew that after Disha incident, those people were killed encounter. They were killed through encounter. Every one of you, from prime ministers up to a normal person, everyone knew it. NHRC, they came next day to investigate. Yeni kaval investigation. It is openly proven that they were encountered. They came here for investigation. We have to look into the reports and everything. Sir, I don't know till now. Now you can ask me, sir, they have done a brutal crime. That is a different thing. My issue there is that we all knew they have done a brutal crime. Why can't you hang on the next day? Me system hai kada idanta. This is your system, right? Why can't you do it? No, in system things will not work means. You created a system for the benefit of the people. Now how can you say that my system will not allow me to do it? Why you have to go for something called extrajudicial killing? Judiciary is there, bureaucracy is there. Within 1 week you could have given a capital punishment, or maybe within 2-3 days, because it is there in your system. Every one of you knew that it is a very serious crime, right? But why you fail to give a punishment in the next 1-2 days? Why you have to go for extrajudicial killing? Because it is a heroic activity. Now National Human Rights Commission came. I don't know what for. They too knew it, okay? Now you are saying some other body, National Legal Services Authority. What services it can really, it is providing, there is no doubt in it, but some issues are there, okay? Administrative law and rule of law. Rule of law is a deadly weapon. Today at least we are having this free air to breathe. We are free actually because there is something confidence that there is a rule of law. If I don't do a mistake, there will be no one who will take me from this place, because law is there to protect me. At least that confidence is there. We will be discussing these two things, and as part of this we have two important institutions which are there in the news recently. Two important concepts I can say. Tribunals, very important concept. Recently it is there in the news. What for? They brought an ordinance. Supreme Court have told one thing, government came with a different law. Okay? And even on the Independence Day, Chief Justice N.V. Ramana was saying that at least we should know what is the intention of you people bringing a law. That created a lot of issue. He made a statement that we are not able to really understand why are you bringing certain laws. At least we should be made clear that what is the intention of you people bringing in certain laws. Okay, as he was saying, lot of debate. It attracted a lot of debate. So such type of things we will be discussing. Okay, and also there is one more concept. I'm just giving a broad concepts. Delegated legislation is there, part of it. Now we knew that. See, I'll give an example is that suddenly the government enforced lockdown last year, right? Enforced lockdown, but still you have to run the show, right? You have to run the administration. You should know how to deal with this corona. But that time Parliament is not in session, and you cannot expect Parliament to be in session. So how do you handle such crisis? Bureaucrats they have to take care of. So what they have done is that they have issued some 18 sets of guidelines at different points of time to deal with corona. And that issuing of guidelines, they could issue guidelines because there is an act called National Disaster Management Act, NDMA Act we have. This NDMA Act empowered the government, central government, to issue guidelines. If there is any crisis, you can issue guidelines. Based on that logic, they issued a set of guidelines. This concept is called delegated legislation. You're delegating means what? Transferring your power to someone else, right? So the legislature power is with Parliament. So they transferred it to the executive or the bureaucracy. That concept is part of it. Now the work is for you people is that why delegated legislation is part of administrative law. Think that first thing. Why it is, because we are discussing administrative law, why it is part of it. Why it is part of it. Why delegated legislation is part of administrative law. This thing you keep it in mind. Now, what is the seventh? CPA, Comparative Public Administration. Please go through it. On the next class, we will have a test. Test on syllabus. Test on syllabus, objective test. Okay? No, it will be syllabus. There will be a thing. Already we used to conduct for GS people also. Now we stopped conducting. We used to conduct for GS. So we will be conducting for your PubEd. There will be a test on your syllabus. 8th chapter. There is one important thinker here. F.W. Riggs will be discussing there. So the name itself, I think some of you can understand. They compare administrative systems of various countries. Okay. Next topic, developmental dynamics. Very important topic. Developmental dynamics. As I think I have told you in the workshops that development is not a homogeneous concept. It varies from person to person. For you, development is different. For me, development is different. For other person, development is different. But the bureaucracy has to handle all variations in development. Okay. In this particular issue, recent times government is focusing on, UPS is focusing on two concepts. One is self-help groups. Help groups, very important group, right? That is in the last 6 or 7 years, 4 times this question was asked. And the second one is the role of women in administration, or not role of women in administration, the role of women in development. Okay, that is again a big topic. Feminism. Have you heard feminism? What is feminism? Okay, fine. Chalo, fine, you're correct. It is a movement which demands rights for women. Okay. So here we will be discussing that concepts, women and development, women in development and all this stuff. Next. Personal administration. What is this? We will be discussing this along with your civil services. Here the issue is simple. We starts with recruitment. How civil servant will be recruited. Okay. Your examination pattern, prelims, mains and interview. Who introduced this? What are the committees that were constituted? Mekhala committee started. We'll be discussing that recruitment exam. Then training period. In Labas, you people will be given training, right? So what is the training modules given there? Okay. Now IPS training will be there in your but still we have to discuss. 2 years training, boss. 2 years training. Probationary period is for 2 years. Okay. And for IPS it is more actually. 2 years, 3 months I think. And for IFS it is almost touching to 3 years. IFS means foreign service. Language level kada training. Diplomacy needs to be taught to them. Right, we'll be trying to discuss all the training modules and what are the issues. Okay. 2 years training, is it needed? First question is that. Okay. Then things like promotion. Your promotion channels. Okay. You have to reach to that secretariat level, right? What do you call it? Central secretariat, or you have to become cabinet secretary. That should be your goal. If you are entering into the system at 22, 23, if you are highly efficient, see, there are only 2 ways, boss. Okay. Either you be efficient or use networks to climb up. Ee madhyalo undaddu. Okay. Right. Don't be in this middle. Either be efficient. Nothing will be happening. So if you are efficient also, you will have some or the other person will be recognizing you. If you are having networks also, fine. You can grow big. But if you are in between, that is the biggest problem. So we will be discussing that promotion channel, career advancement, and disciplinary measures, and of course pay and service conditions. What is the highest salary which a civil servant get in India? Ayya? 2.5 lakhs. Who will get that? So highest salary is 2.5 lakhs. Now pustakal patti bayatiki velipoddu. 2 lakshal kosama nenu chadivedi idantha. Right? If you are in a private job, if you are really doing good, you can easily get 2 lakhs, not a big deal. But you will be getting 2.5 lakhs after 20 years of service. Okay. Now decide whether UPSC or not. Okay. So 2.5 lakhs. Now maybe some people might be happy, sir. Other allowances will be there, no, sir. Do you think we will be honest or what? Okay. 2 IPS officers in the training, they were discussing, it seems. One of my colleague used to say that there was one posh car is going nearby it. One IPS probationary saying to other person, when I will buy this car? The other person is saying, don't worry, within 1 year we can get those cars. Not an issue. At least that commitment should be there. Okay. CBI, Central Vigilance Commission, these people are there. Okay. And now Lokpal and Lokyukt also came. And Modi Sahab is so powerful and he is so serious in those things. And I think I was okay. Because of this sound, even I speak loud, it's a big issue. The most important topics in this personal administration are, there are 2 documents which we generally do not follow. One is code of conduct and other one is code of ethics. And in the last 6 or 7 years, UPSC asked almost 5 or 6 times this question: code of conduct and code of ethics. What is code of conduct? How you should behave when you are part of an organization. Particularly as a civil servant, how you should behave. Okay. Can you behave the way you want? No. There are some accepted behavior which you have to follow. Okay. See the first question. This rain is irritating me. So basically it is about public policy. Okay. So here understand, concentrate in public policy. See, bureaucrats play a very important role in public policy, right? So here we will read how policy formulations happens in our country. Okay, national education policy or national health policy or any scheme or any program, how it will be formulated. Who are the stakeholders involved in policy formulation? After policy formulation, what will be the next stage? Policy implementation. So how you will implement those policies? Actually in India, the issue is with the implementation. We have great policies. Narega scheme is there, right? And even very beautiful schemes with regard to health and education we have. But the problem is implementation problems. And who is the culprit? This is what the diplomacy. Entire systems are, why you want to say only bureaucracy? There are lot many forces, okay, which are responsible for this improper implementation, right? Then what next comes? Policy formulation, policy evaluation. Policy evaluation means you have to evaluate whether things are happening good or not, right? So here we will be discussing all the stakeholders and very important topic. Even in your interview stage, they might ask you a question in policy because public policy is everything right now. If policies are not being formulated well, if policies are not being implemented well, nothing you can do it. Okay. So this is one important thing. Now recently Modi Sahab said this Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, and every time he add one thing to it. Sabka Prayas. Yes. Next time he'll add one more thing. Okay. But to materialize that policy or the idea, some substance should be given to it. Means some policies to be formulated, and it has to be implemented, and it has to be evaluated. It's a big process. We'll be discussing as part of it public policy. What is the next topic? Techniques of administrative improvement. Yes, I'm waiting for this rain to get slowed down, but it is doing overaction. Okay, unnecessary overaction. See, understand here. Even now, if you go to government office, you can have an imagination of that office. It will be like an outdated office. The files, everything will be like outdated most of the times. But now, if you go to a corporate office, right, especially not just I'm asking the luxury and everything, but the technology wise also, they are always far ahead. But why not government? Why not government institutions? See, okay, though you are not running for profit, that doesn't mean you will run your show inefficiently, right? So basically, in our country, administration is inefficient. Now we have to improve it. How do we improve it? One topic here which UPSC is focusing nowadays was e-governance. E-governance will improve the system or not? What is e-governance? Governance through digital mode or through digital platforms. Will it improve the efficiency of administration or not? To some extent. Now, see, e-governance, okay, to some extent it is fine, not an issue. I can confidently say today vaccination drive happened successfully because of CoWIN app. Maybe initially they had some technical glitches, but later it is because of CoWIN and Aarogya Setu app, we have seen it, okay. I'll show you the power of e-governance. Just earlier, if you want to have a startup, it used to take months and even sometimes years. That Rajinikanth Shivaji backdrop was that, okay. There it's real. You have to give money, as you said, corruption is a lubricant, right? So you have to pay everyone, and it used to take 6 months or 1 year. Now we got a new index developed by Niti Aayog called Ease of Doing Business Index. Now under this, the entire process got
electronized, like digitalized. The entire process got digitalized. Now I'll give you an example of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana particularly. These two states, why? Because they stood 1 and 2 in ease of doing business index. Now they have streamlined the entire process. Now if you want to have a startup, within 21 days you will get approval. Everything got streamlined, everything got digitalized, and you have to submit only certificates through online mode, right? Now everything got digitalized, and within 21 days you will get permission from the government to establish your enterprise. If not, by default permission is given to you. You can establish yourself. And for which these two states got first and second position. Now we are moving in these lines where entire process is getting streamlined. And one more example we have is direct benefit transfers. Earlier, even to get small amounts, you have to go to the office, and there you have to pay 50 rupees or 100 rupees at least to get your pension or some other benefits from the government. Now, because of this direct benefit transfer, directly money is being disbursed in your accounts, and it's like a great thing. And I hardly knew before, when you're going to a government office, means at least you should have some 500 in your pocket. At least you should have. There is no, I'm not again fabricating it. It was the reality. Maybe may not be the senior officers might ask you, but at least the peons and every the royalty kada. Senior people will not ask you. The people who stay nearby, the peon or assistant, they will ask you, money is that, Saab, I have to give at least 500,000. That is called retail corruption. Okay. Have you? I think most of you might be going. Not most of you, maybe some of you. Register office. Have you ever went to register office? There you will really know the example of retail corruption. Register will be there. High-level bureaucrats will be there. They never ask you money. Even the lower people will be asking money. They'll charge maybe 1% on the transaction, and everyone very genuinely they'll distribute the money within themselves. గొడవలు ఏమి ఉండవండి, నీట్గా ఒక అండర్స్టాండింగ్ ఉంటుంది వాళ్ళకి. ఓకే, if the transaction is for 5, maybe if the transaction is for some 40 lakhs issue, 1% of it how much? 5%. 1% 40,000, 5% ఎంత అవుతుంది? 2 lakhs. 2 lakhs on a single transaction. Per day, at least 4-5 transactions will happen. 10 lakhs. ఎందుకు ఇవన్నీ? రిజిస్టర్ డిపార్ట్మెంట్ ఫస్ట్ పెట్టండి మీరు. My first priority is not IAS. First, I want to go to register department. Nearby, there is a register department. R.C. Reddy near that. Register department near to it. Vikas bookstore opposite, right? So, generally, this will happen. And I'll give an example. I don't want to name this person. My roommate's uncle was he used to work as a group 1 officer. He's a register. And one day I was speaking with my roommate. He said, my uncle have 7 engineering colleges. I said, oh, great businessman. What is his business? No, he's a government officer. What government officer? Where? Registered department. Registered department, 7 engineering colleges he had. So at least you have to aim high. 7 airports. Already 7 engineering colleges finished. Now what is the next thing? 7 airports, something sort of that. Okay. Really that much of revenue generate. Black. Why it happens? Can anyone say? Why it will happen? Why there is such corruption or such amount of money transferring at this registered department? Property. Okay, fine. Undervalue. Yes, yes. Now see, market price of a particular property will be in different amount. 40 lakhs. Now, see, the real property transaction that happens is 4 crores. Okay? Everyone knew this. But the real transaction happens for some 40 lakhs or maybe some 50 lakhs. So you'll be paying tax on only this amount. Remaining amount you will not pay tax. Right? So almost lakhs of money will be saved. Aa lakhs lo konta illaki. Understanding undali. That is what administration is, coordination. Okay? Akkada meer godav padakodadu mari. Okay? So techniques of administrative improvement, we will be discussing e-governance particularly, and lot many other technicals, technologies are there. Right now, this topic is important because Nowadays, administration to be efficient, it has to use technology. Geotagging. Have you heard this word geotagging? I'll be discussing geotagging, drone technology. Nowadays, to supply drugs, drone technology is being used by the administration. GPS, geographical positioning system. All these technologies are being used. Artificial intelligence. I think these words you have heard, right? All these technologies needs to be used for improvement of administration, and the IAS officer of 2022 or 2023 is expected to use these things. Artificial intelligence or drone technology or maybe cloud computing. All these are there. Every day if you open your newspaper, maybe some or the other government will be using one or the other technology. What is the geotagging? Geotagging. Yes. See, geotagging means now this law excellence is there. This law excellence is tagged with its coordinates, geographical coordinates. They can monitor it. Whether the work is, if any work is going on here, they can monitor it. Now, when geotagged, you can tax the, you can collect property tax from this particular asset. Now, government is using geotagging for everything. For example, to monitor how roads constructions are happening. They are geotagging it so that they can understand the status on daily basis. Earlier, there used to be one software chief minister. One software chief minister used to be there, right? Andarki telusu gaani cheppatla. Ex-chief minister of Andhra Pradesh. Okay? ఏమయ్యా నాకు తెలియదయ్యా. Ex-chief minister of Andhra Pradesh used to be there. He used to be called as software chief minister because of some other reasons. Okay, why should I hurt sentiments of few people? Okay. Now he developed a database in his CM office. Through that, he used to monitor how Polavaram project is going on weekly basis. Right? And it's not only for this person. Even the central government is using Pragati. There is an application, Pragati. Proactive governance and timely implementation. Kurrad fast ga unnadu. Okay? So yes, correct. Pragati app. Through this, the Prime Minister, he is having a fortnightly meeting with district level officers and state level officers to monitor all the central government schemes. Real-time governance. Okay? These words, even real-time governance is also an important thing. Real-time governance means you're handling things on the regular basis, okay? On real-time basis, okay? These concepts are very much important and lot of developments are happening. Now administration is using each and every other technology to improve the administration. See, earlier IAS officer means an authority. Once you enter into the system, 35 years your life is done, okay? No one can remove you. But now things got changed. IAS officer means it's not just authority, more expectations are also on you. And I was saying in workshops, if you're not performing well, maybe you might be asked to get out of the system. And last time, it's not again a fabrication, 20 IAS officers were asked to get out of the system. Last year only. Now, why? Because, see, people are getting matured. If government is not performing, they'll throw away the government. Now, government also knew that fact. Now, they are making the administration to run. They are asked, because without administration support, they cannot do it. No government can do anything without the administration support. Now, they are making lot of efforts how to improve the administrative system. If you call any chief minister, an intelligent chief minister, if you want to say, he is the person who know how to use the administration. Now, if you teach ideologies and everything to the government, they'll ask you, Babu, please pack your luggage and leave, not an issue. Okay? Now, the expectations are increasing because the expectations of the people are increasing. Okay? Now, we all knew that. I'll again give example of Andhra Pradesh. The chief minister used to say, then chief minister used to say, I have done a lot of things because we started from scratch and everything. But somewhere people haven't trusted those words. What happened? from 100 to 23. Right? The same thing is happening. Now, if KCR came to power for the second time because of few powerful schemes which he launched. And in GHMC, he got this shock. Almost his seats got reduced, BJP seats got increased. If you are not able to perform, and I think in one constituency they even lost, Dubaka constituency they have lost. That gave a great shock to the government. Okay. So when you're not able to perform now, you cannot stay in power. That is a reality everyone understood. So to make it happen, you have to run the administration efficiently. And who will be their part of administration? It is again the civil servants. The last chapter is financial administration. Okay. Now, in this financial administration, we will be discussing what is monetary policy, what is fiscal policy, how accounting is done in the government, how auditing is done in the government, what is the debt of our country, okay, public debt, okay, and we also discuss some important institutions like Comptroller and Auditor General of India, Comptroller General of Accounts. What are these institutions? What are their functions? Without financial stability, you cannot run the administration of any state or even a country. Even a family cannot run its administration without having financial viability. Very important thing. So again, most dynamic topic. So we'll be discussing these topics. Okay. Now what you will do is that for the next 1 week I'll not be there. I'll be again starting the class on Thursday. Okay. The question paper which I gave to you, the 2020 question paper, what you will do is that you try to map that according to the syllabus. You read the question and try to, okay, from which topic this question would have been asked. For every question you do it, for every question. Mapping of the question paper syllabus. That is what I told you in the disadvantages itself. I can confidently say 2 minutes more, 5 minutes more. I think you have a class, you have to go there, right? So, 5 minutes. For what time class? 4:30, yeah? Just 2 minutes, huh? Not more than that. Malli complaint please. Okay. In public administration, after finishing of 4 months, you will understand that you can easily write any answer, first thing. But the problem will be there always, understanding of the question. And if you can understand the question, trust me, on the first day itself I am saying 60% of the marks you can score. First thing is that first you have to understand the question. That is the only issue. Once you understand the question, you will have the content to write it. Trust me, I will give you that content. Only understanding of the question. Second issue is that sometimes you will understand the question, kani padal rav. You don't know how to express it. That is some important problem which many people face. If you know these two things, PubMed easily, without any preparation, you can get 280, 290. At least 250 plus. Now the scores are little bit low. 250 plus you can score. Too much of reading, too much of PhD to show to your parents, ma, my optional, see, these many books are there. Then nothing needed. 2 books is important and classroom slides. I'll give for every class some slides. Sufficient. If you are, and again I'm repeating, if you can understand the question and if you're able to express your ideas in a writing, in writing, PubMed is done. No need to mug up anything. Hardly you'll remember. There is no question or no topic where you have to mug up the points. Everything is of understanding. Everything is of understanding. Few thinkers, gradually if you learn, you'll get into your mind. Not an issue. No concept to mug up. No need to use these maps. A3 size, A3 or A1 size sheet, you'll paste in your room. A4 size, A1, right? It's A1, right? A1 size sheet. Engineers, okay? So we knew only this A3, A2, A1, A4, something is there, okay? And they used to give us a box. First year of engineering, they used to give us this bag. What is that box we call? Chart box. The engineer feel box, okay? Fine. So, as he rightly said, understanding of the question is the first thing, but please read it because you will get to know what exactly. Don't get disappointed, but just go through it. Only task is try to map with the syllabus. Okay? And for those people who want to start reading from the day one, today itself, some serious people, committed people will be there. For those people, please take 1 or 2 books which you have to buy it. So, the list raskocha. I know I wrote a big list, so I'm confused to give. But for those people who want to start immediately, right now, I'll not. You start buying Administrative Thinkers by Prasad and Prasad. First, Administrative Thinkers by Prasad and Prasad. You can buy it, and remaining books, I'll be discussing the positives and negatives of these books on the next class. Every book, what is the positive and what are the issues you will face in it, and what are the challenges of it. Okay, and please mug up the syllabus. Or Thursday or Friday we will have a test. Test means malli we prepare just to test how you are able to whether you got a grip on the syllabus, and after that we will directly start into the class. Okay, once we start it will be like a going on, will not be stopping. Okay, till then I want you to get acquainted with the syllabus. Okay, first thing. Thank you one and all, and again we'll meet on Thursday. Okay. Yeah. No. They'll give governance related. Let us be very much particular to our option. Actually, yesterday I gave him the promise that for PubAd and governance and polity, every day I'll give some handout based on current affairs. Kanu maat ichinaga tappakodu. Okay, means once you gave the word, you have to stand on to it. Okay, so before giving that word, I have to think twice. At least I'll give a list of articles which you have to read with regard to PubAd, and actually I don't want to give list of articles, I want to give a content. But once you start anything, it should be so regular. So means I have to run the show for the 4 months. I'm thinking on that. Maat ichcheste emundi ippudu icheyochu. Okay, but whether we follow it or not is the most important thing. If not that, at least I'll post in your group that okay, these are the articles which are relevant for PubAd, governance and polity. PubAd governance anta okate andi. Okay, Twin Brothers. Okay, ఇది లేకపోతే అది లేదు. Polity కొద్దిగా ఎక్స్ట్రా చేస్తుంటుంది అప్పుడప్పుడు. Okay, but all are the 3. Okay, fine. Thank you one and all, and we'll create a group and updates will be posted in that group.